I'm doing good, Hariharan. Let's wait for a few minutes for everyone to join. Good evening, Sakab. Good evening, Nilanjan. Yes, Ankit. Ankit, were you there on Saturday? Ankit, okay. So, did you follow the flow I was giving on Saturday? Like, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, maybe I'll repeat that flow, but I just want you to have that picture in mind before again starting today's class, because I understand there are a few students who were not there on Saturday and they have missed the bigger picture. While they understand the code, but they don't know what fits where. So I'm going to discuss that. What do you think about blockchain? I think that's a good idea. Nilanjan, you're not there for Saturday. That's okay. I'll explain it again. Blockchain is a good idea. And right now, blockchain developers get paid a lot more than other developers because not many people know about that technology. So those of you who want to, for example, if you are doing, will be worth to be a blockchain? Yeah, it will be worth. Don't stick to one technology, Ankit, per se. I don't call yourself as a software. Don't call yourself as a Java developer or JavaScript developer per se. Call yourself as a web developer. Call yourself as a Web 3.0 developer. Okay, now you don't care whether solidity is there in the market or not. As long as there's some technology related to Web 3.0, you will be worth it. Okay, so yeah, it will be worth being a it will be worth being a good blockchain developer. Okay, so now let's get started on today's lecture. I will just explain the story so far first, and then we'll take it forward from there. So we have something called as CRM app, Customer Relationship Management app. What is this app doing? Basically, the idea is there are some users and there are some tickets. Users are of three types: admin, customer, and engineer. Yeah. Sir, one doubt in user controller final, why we are sending result like await, fetch by name, username. Why we are sending that's also because we are in the catch block. You are also sending when you write the catch block in the fetch by name function. You actually send back the result if the result is not correct. Okay, Arian. So you want some mechanism for using the response so that you can send it in. If there is error, you can send an error message. Therefore, you are sending the result object. Response object. Okay, now what is there? These are three types of users which manipulate tickets. This is the basic framework. This is the basic idea of the app. But since you have users, you want to build authentication for the user and some activity guidelines for them. So you need to build authentication and user activity. Those are a couple of things that we need to do. Now let's look at how the app is. Let's look at the framework of the app in few minutes. So the CRM app, as we know it, has multiple moving parts and pieces. There is something called as model. I'll just call it models because we are having ticket model today. There's something called as models, and these models, can you tell me what these models are doing? Let me ask Nilanjan. Nilanjan, what do you think models are doing? Connecting to DB, they are database. You can think of them as the database. They stores the data. Store the data. Whatever data you want to store, is stored using models. We have something called as controllers. And controller is basically, it controls the data. It is the first layer which controls. Yeah, actually, that is correct, Nilanjan. Controllers control, let me write it better. Just give me 1 second. Controllers are going to control the data. Control the data. And you have some things that help you work with controllers and models. There is something called as middleware, which provides some extra services that all different controllers, some extra middleware services which different controllers can use. So this provides services to the controller. Okay, services to controller. All requests will pass through middleware. Is it necessary? No, Nilanjan. That is not necessary. Only the requests that are set to pass through the middleware will pass through middleware. And this is an important question. Who will decide which request will go through the middleware and which request will not go through the middleware? Nilanjan, can you think of a component who can decide this question? Yeah, like authenticating. When you are authenticating that engineer is indeed there, you need a token verification service. But who decides which service who decides which request will pass through a middleware and which will not? No, not API. There's a distinct thing that decides it. Some routes, yes. There's something called as routes, which determines how the information flows through the system. Okay? Decides the flow of routes. Routes don't have API. Routes have basically a map between a given gate API gateway to a given function in controller. I'll explain routes in just a second. Describe the flow of requests. Okay, so routes are these things. If you don't know about them, let me share this. Again. So these are routes. You decide what is the endpoint that you want to connect to, and then once you have the endpoint, you decide what are the middlewares for that endpoint, and then you decide what is the controller you are hitting with that endpoint. This whole route from the endpoint to the controller. Endpoint is this one, this here. This part here is called as endpoint. If you look at get, let me show it to you. App dot get. So this, sorry, one sir, this one. You see a URL here. This one is called as the API endpoint. A gateway or access point or whatever you want to call it. It's just a place where a particular request comes and hits. And this determines what needs to be done with the user request. Okay. If there is a put request on this URL, then I'm going to call these two middlewares and this controller. This is what router's work is. It determines the flow of the request. Where is it coming from? What are the middle stations it will go through? And what is the final destination? Vivek, are you in the class? so I hope you are following so far. Let me go back to the drawing board. Let me stop this. So routers decides the flow of requests. You have middlewares, routers control, and there are some bookkeeping processes. Sir, why middleware in array format? We can just write the separated comma only. No, that I don't know if that will work, Nilanjan. You have to decide all the middlewares in an array, and then you can do. Okay. Gauri Deshpande, can we say routes are API only? Routes are a part of API. API is these endpoints that are given to you. Routes determine how those endpoints are connected to the controllers. Okay. API is the whole software that is running, and then routes determine how the endpoints connect to the controller. Multiple middleware will come in array only. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you'll have middleware, routers. So you can think of the flow of the information is like this. A client raises a request. It goes to the router. From the router, it goes to the middleware. From the middleware, it goes to controller. And then controller hits the models to change the request or do whatever is asked in the request. Then model gives the response to the controller. Controller sends it back to the router, and router sends it back to the user. So that's how it works. API gateway is the endpoint. API gateway is the endpoint. Yes, that is true. Yes, Abhijit. So we have routes, and now we have something called as. There are a few more things that you need to understand. One is config. So there are some configurations that you want to keep. These are the knobs in your machine that you want to change over time or keep constant. Basically, what database you're using, what is the URL of the database, what are the URLs. If there is a front end, what is the URL of front end? If there is a front end who is talking to a back end, then the front end will have the URL of the back end. All those things are kept in a config file, in a config document. Sorry, in a config data, in a config folder. And then finally, there is utils, which contains anything like constants or library functions, whatever is used across different domains of the program. This is just extras. Okay. So those are the key players that you need to understand to appreciate the common things. Yeah, common things. Utils are common things. Those are the key things that you need to understand the CRM app. Okay. Now, why am I talking about this? Again, I have discussed this on Saturday, but there are some of you who are not there. It's not usually a good idea to discuss something groundbreaking on Saturday. But anyways, it was a good point, so I discussed it. Basically, imagine there are two people, someone who knows English. Yes, here we are seeing the complete overview of CRM app, Nilanjan. That is true. Okay, somebody who knows English and somebody who don't. What is CRM app? CRM app is the customer relationship management app that we are building with this in these classes, Vivek. You remember I took a class where I was discussing what does the CRM app do and how it is used. It contains these three kinds of people, and then there are tickets, and they manipulate the tickets. You have to maintain authentication and user activity. You remember that, Vivek? Hello? Okay. So that's what CRM app is. Anyways, so you have English, somebody who knows English, and somebody who don't. And I give them a sentence. All men are mortal. This is a classic sentence from logic. Suppose I give this sentence to these two people. The person who don't know English, but who knows only English alphabets, only English alphabets, he don't know words, he just knows alphabets. Then he will try to and ask both of them to remember this sentence. The person who only knows the alphabets will try to remember it one alphabet at a time. He will see that A comes first, one comes next, then one comes, then M comes, then there's a space, then there's M, E, N, there's a space, there is R, E, A, R, E, then a space, and so on and so forth. You'll try to remember each alphabet in the order. Okay? And whereas the person who knows English has a higher structure. He knows words and he knows how those words links to. So this person who knows English has the high probability of remembering this sentence. Do you agree? If I just give 5 seconds, this person who knows English has high probability of remembering. Whereas who does not know English can't really remember much details. Okay, he cannot, unless he has photographic memory, which is like another concept, but can't really remember much. Okay, this is the usual case. A usual person who don't know English, or if I put Chinese letters in front of you, you will still be in the same diagram. Now, this is the first observation. Second observation is, if this guy makes a mistake, the meaning of the sentence will be the same. So even if he says all persons are mortal, or all women are mortal, or he says all human beings are mortal, the mortality part is still the same. He's just changing the gender and he is making it more gender neutral. But the sentence is more or less the same. There's not much meaning difference. Okay, meaning will stay. Meaning stays same. Stays similar in case of error. Even if there is error, the meaning stays similar. And the third is, if I give a random sentence. So if I give a random sentence like X, Y, ELF, ZGF, GSF, R. Okay. Suppose this is the sentence I give. Then there is no difference between the English learner and the person who don't know English, who only knows alphabets. Okay. In random sentence, in random sequence, there is no advantage. You follow the test case, the experiment so far between a person who knows English and a person who don't know English. Now, can you tell me why the person who knows English is able to remember the sentence so well, make meaningful errors, and was not able to remember the sentence in case of a random pattern? Can you tell me what is happening here? Why is the person who knows English so good than the person who don't know English? It's not practice. Experience is not the thing. I don't see, if I don't teach the words, then learning. Likit is saying he knows the meaning of every word, which is the key here. It's not the practice. So you might say, I will work hard, and one day I'll get a job. That's not gonna work. You need something which moves you above, move you one step above in the level of abstraction. What this person is seeing is only alphabets. Okay? But this person who knows English is seeing these words as structures in themselves which have meaning. Okay? They are operating at different level of abstraction. He is operating at the level of abstraction of alphabets. He is operating at words, or maybe sometimes sentences. He has some memory of sentences. Okay? And that is the difference that I want to create with these lectures. I don't want you to operate at the level of code. Some of you might be still asking, how is this whole picture working? I don't want you to operate at the level of code. Code is okay. I mean, you can operate at the level of functions. Like when we were discussing DSA, I was telling you to focus on the functions, not to focus on each line of code. Because if you understand the function and you know how to divide your code into functions, then you can easily solve the question. Similarly, now I'm not even telling you to focus on the functions. I'm telling you to focus on the modules and try to understand at the level of modules what is happening in the app. What happens inside the module, you can learn that later. Right now, just learn what is the modules doing. And what will this do? How does this advantage translates into your ability to work with the code? First of all, if you understand this whole flow of things in the app, you will be able to remember the code much better. If somebody asks you, where can I find a particular piece of information? You don't have to search. You don't have to do a control F to search for a particular function. You know where that function should be intuitively because you know what each module is doing. So you will be able to remember the code base very easily. Second, if there is an error in your code, you will be able to debug it very easily because you know what is the flow of the information through the app, and you will know exactly where you are getting the error. Are you following? And then the third advantage you have, if somebody else writes, if there is a legacy code which is written in this kind of model, you will be able to quickly get what that code is doing because you know this overview. How to come up with better model design on as per requirement of an app. Abhijit, we will be discussing couple of more apps as this classes go along. We'll do like 4 classes where we'll discuss 4 more apps, and most of the time I want you to stick to the MVC framework only. Legacy means old code. Legacy code is something that is written by your previous developers, okay, or somebody else's code. You can call it legacy. Okay, you want LEGACY. Sorry for the spelling. Legacy. Legacy code is something that is old. Okay, can you explain flow once again? Yes, flow is like this. Routers decides the flow. Nayan, router decides the flow. Router decides what will happen when a particular request hit a particular API gateway or API endpoint, and then the request typically goes from router. Sir, start from API when we request. A legacy is something old code. Somebody else's code is called as legacy. Okay, somebody else's code is called as legacy code. So when you see a new piece of code, how do you understand the code faster? This comes from understanding the architecture of the code. Okay, don't directly jump into each line of the code, but understand the architecture. Okay, can you explain flow once again? I'll explain. So start from API when we request. Okay, so what is going on? Let me share the screen and again discuss how things are working. Just give me a few minutes. Are you able to see this re-level window? Okay. Just give me 1 minute. Let me open Postman. They have a very good name. I like the name Postman, by the way. I don't know who gave it. Yeah. Postman. People are still in Christmas mode. Very nice. Yes, Vivek. So, legacy ones. Legacy, what do you understand by legacy, Vivek? Legacy is, so suppose there was a software written in an old language. For example, some software which was written in COBOL, okay, or maybe an old version of Java, and then uh, an old version of Java, then what will happen is it will be difficult to maintain that code. And that kind of code is called as legacy code, which is hard to manage because of its old nature. Sometimes we call legacy code to be something that is handed down to you from another team. Typically, what happens is when there is a new team formed or there's a restructuring in the company, then a bunch of code base comes from a given team to a different team, and that kind of code is called as legacy code. But my purpose of using legacy code here was to explain to you that if an unknown code base is given to you, you can quickly understand it if you understand the architectural pattern behind the code. Okay, it is similar to when you see a new English sentence, you will understand the meaning of sentence if you know how the words work. Does that make sense, Vivek, or do you want to unmute yourself? Okay, yes. Okay, so where is the story starting? Our story starts at this point when we decide to sign up or sign in or whatever you want to do. Suppose I want to sign up to a username, email address, type, and password. I send a request from this post. This request and my application is listening to all the requests that are coming to localhost 3000. Right now it is not looking because I have not started Node yet, but mostly it is looking all the requests that are coming to this point. Once the request comes to this point, which is your app.js. Okay, your app.js is running Express server, and that Express server is constantly listening to Express. The app is an Express server which is constantly listening to request coming to it. Once the request comes, it goes to multiple routers. There are multiple router endpoints that are open. For example, a basic endpoint is / where I am just sending a hi in case somebody hits me. Then there are different endpoints. Few endpoints are for authentication router. Few are for the user router. We have discussed two kinds of controllers so far. One controller that we discussed was for the authentication controllers. Okay, and both of them use the same model of user. We'll come to model in few minutes. So this request come to this, and suppose there is an authentication request, which is sign up request. So it goes to this router, which is auth router. And if I go to the auth router, authentication router has these two API endpoints. First is the sign up, and the other is sign in. If the sign up request comes, it directly goes to auth controller dot sign up, which is a controller in which is auth controller, which is take care of the authentication, and it goes to sign up, which contains a request and a response. I do some magic. Don't worry about what I do. All the logic of sign up is here. Okay, I do the sign up on the user and send a response. This, while doing the sign up, I am calling the user object, user model. I get the user model. User is a model imported from user model, and I call that model to save my data. This model hits my user route is different. User route is for this thing, for fetching all the users, for finding users by ID, finding and updating users. Since you are not there on Saturday, we discussed these APIs, which were helping the admin to change the status of users, or finding users by IDs. Okay, this is called as user activity. So sometimes compare sync does not work, so I use compare. What is the major difference between the two? Compare sync is there for a synchronous compare. So code will stop there when compare is happening. Whereas normal compare will you will have to call a callback on that because it's a async function. To make changes or update, user need to be admin. Yes, that is correct. Therefore, I'm saying is admin. Okay, to make the changes or search for users, the user has to be admin, and therefore I have a middleware called as is admin. So in an update while giving wrong user, it gives success message. In update, let me check. That might be a problem. Let me see. Yeah, that is true, Anna. I explained that part. Update, where is it giving? So it comes here, and if I give a wrong user ID, it sends user record has been updated. Okay, maybe the user is getting. Just give me 1 second. Maybe you have to write some code here, which is for if user dot length. No, it should not be user dot length. It should be something like user dot object converter fetch by name params. I'm not sure. What you will have to do is you have to look at I've written if user then rest else respond as user ID does not exist. It worked. Yeah, that is what you need to do. But what I'm thinking is what I'm right now thinking, Hariharan, is what is the response that I'm getting? Am I getting the name of the user or am I getting that response, like how many are updated or something? Exec is executing the query. This is a function that you have to use when you're doing update. Okay. If you're not doing update, you don't need exec, but you need when you're doing update, you need this. It executes the query. Okay. I understand where Hariharan is coming from. Let's take it up later, or maybe that's a small minor detail. I don't want to spend time on fixing it, so I'll just let it be. But ideally, you have to check if users is a empty list or not. If users is empty, you return that no user have been updated. So something like that, some code like this will come. I'm not able to understand it right now, but if user is there, then you should return this. When we are doing operation, we need to use yes. When we are doing update operation, yeah. This is user, and else you can return there was no user from. Something like this you can do, but I'm not sure if this is to send message. That's what we can do. I'm not sure if this will work, so we'll take it. We'll park it for the time being. Let's move to the next part of the code. Babu Reddy, when we are doing two operations, we need to use exec. Let me give you the exact detail of exec. Exec in what's it called? Mongoose. provides several static helper functions on query object. Query also have then function that can be used to promise execute. When executing a query, a callback function, you specify a query in JSON, and JSON document syntax is same as this. Find one is okay, but okay, it is basically this is basically the exact function is, sir, compare sync again. Compare and compare sync is for that asynchronous and synchronous calling. So suppose you want the control to stop at the compare. Suppose you want to stop the flow of the. Suppose you want to wait for the compare to end before you can move forward. Use compare sync. If you want to use, if you don't want it to wait, directly use compare. Compare returns your promise. Exec is used to execute the query object which is returned in Mongoose query. Yes, that is true. And what it does is, it is basically similar to then operator. Have you seen the then operator? It is very similar to that. Basically, it executes the query. Whereas find one update is going to create a query that you want to do. App.use auth router and router are the same? No, they're not the same, Aradhya. App.use auth router, in that you have to use a different syntax for the router. You cannot use the same syntax. Okay? It will insert a new document if user ID. It will insert a new document. Here just copying module structure of app as being done in class, but when asked to create an app, things mixed up in MVC structure. Here just copying module structure of app as being done in class, but when asked to create an app, things get mixed up in MVC structure. So what I'm understanding is you're not able to do it for a fresh app. Is that the question, Naviji? So the best way is to do for a couple of apps. We are going to do like 3-4 apps as the class moves on, and then try to see how you will understand. Typically that happens because you're not able to understand the app. Yeah. We will understand how these apps work once you see a bunch of apps getting created. That's what I can say. Another thing is try to reason about it from the first principles. Why do we need a controller? Why do we need to structure our code like this? All these questions, if you ask, you will understand it. Always try to start from the models. Whenever a question comes, start from the models. Try to see what are the key models that you need for that problem, and then build up from there. Build if you have these two models, what are the controllers you need? If you have those controllers, middleware is the simplest part. Middleware is, once you see 2-3 apps, you will understand what kind of things goes into middleware. So middleware is very simple. Sir, when doing sign up, if user ID is provided, which is already present in DB, it gives error. Some internal, the user ID is already updated. The user ID is already up. That is true. User ID should be unique, Nilanjan. It should not be. Yeah. No. You don't respond like that. Nilanjan, you don't respond with that detail. You don't say that user ID is already used. That depends on upon the design that you want to build for this, but that's a very low level detail. But you can decide that you want to say there's an error, or you can say that the user ID has been already used. Both of them are okay. I didn't go to that granularity for the sake of time. I just said any error that comes, I don't care what it is. I'll just return that. It is not getting updated. But there is something you can do, which is to check the whole sign up request. There is a middleware that you can create, which is user request body. There's something called as verify user request body, which is the middleware you can create. And that middleware can check if it is Sir, can we give reply if it is duplicate? Yeah, yeah, that is what I'm talking about. There can be a which is called as middleware, which is called as uh, verify ticket request. Sorry, not ticket request. Uh, User request body, in which you are going to verify the JSON that is coming to you for the sign up. When there is a sign up, whatever JSON is coming to you, you should be able to verify it. And you should be able to give a pinpointed answer to that verification. You should be able to say, okay, your email is not correct, your email is not correct, or your ID is not correct, or whatever you have written is not correct. So all those things you can do, or we don't like your name or something like that. But basically, you need a small module that can verify the whole user request. I've not written it because I thought that to save time, I've not written it. Uh, but you get the idea. You can write a middleware which can do all that for you before it hits the controller. Before you go to the controller, you can write a middleware that will take your request and do a sanity check on that. I got that. Thanks. Okay, Nilanjan. So that was the story so far. So far, we have discussed three things. We have discussed user model, we have discussed authentication controller, and we have discussed the user controller. Today we are going to create another model. Just a second. Let me mute.
नहीं मुझे बोलना नहीं क्या होता
Sorry for the disturbance. Okay. Today we are going to create another model, and that model is called as ticketmodel.js. How does your ticket look like? We need a schema, and we will create a model out of the schema. I'll directly create the model. I'll not write anything in the whiteboard for this. I'll just come here, add a file, and call this file as ticket. Model. How does this ticket model look like? We'll have const. Yes, that is true, Nilanjan. Tickets will be stored in a separate collection. And every ticket will be assigned a user. So you can fetch that user from the user ID. Mongoose is equal to require mongoose, simple, and then once ticket schema is mongoose dot schema, and we can have title. The title of the ticket. The type of title is string. Required is obviously true. I like to write a comma after this. Ticket priority. You need a priority for the ticket. And type is typically number. Why is this coming here? Come on. Type is number. and required is true, and you need a default value. It is 4. 4 is the lowest priority. Priority 1 is the topmost priority, and 4 is the lowest priority that we have. So tickets can have priority from 1 to 4. 1 being the most. Haven't we go with separate folder? We have created a all the models will stay in the models folder. You don't have to create a separate folder for each model here. Okay? Oh, sorry. Got your point. Just got your point. Yeah, that is. Thanks for reminding me. Let me delete this part. Let me delete this part and we need a 9th folder. That is true. Just give me 1 minute. Let me create it. Thank you. Thanks a lot for reminding. So I go to relabel. There should be a folder called CRM app. I go to CRM app. There is an app folder. Inside this there is 8. I control C this and I control V this. So my folder is copied. It will take few minutes. Let it get copied. Okay, this folder is copied. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this. I'm going to call it 9.building in the CRM app, and this is manipulation and capabilities. Now today's date is 26th, no 27th, I don't know. Today is 26th. I just come here and rename this 26th of December 2022, and that should be good. Now I'll go to my GitHub desktop. I'll go to CRM app and I'll say created a folder for class 9. Make these changes. Yeah, thanks for that, Hariyar and Suraj, for writing the date. Push origin. That's good. Now I can go to chapter number 9 and I can go to models, and inside models I can define another file. Let me call this as ticket model JS. Happy. Now we are going to, in this model, we'll define a file which contains mongoose, which is require mongoose, and then cons ticket schema is new mongoose dot schema, and this is schema. We are going to talk about title. Title is going to be, this is a schema like this. Okay, anyways, I don't want this to be, come on, go away. Title will be of type string, and it is required. Required is true. And you have ticket priority, which is again type is string. required is true and default is say 4. Description is also type. But what the need for default there? Radhi, because sometimes if you don't provide the priority, I already know that it is a low priority item. That's an added benefit I can provide. It is a required field, but if nobody provides a value, I'll say 4 as the priority. Does that make sense, Radhi? Okay. You have a status, which is type string, required as true, and default value is open. As soon as you create it, it is open. I don't like this. Why do I not like? What is the right way to write this open? The right way would be to have it in the constants. So, yeah. So just go to the constants, utils constants, and here what we can do is we can say ticket status. What are the ticket statuses that we have? We have open, which is open. What other ticket statuses do we have? Post is also there. Let me tell. Yeah, we have open. We have in progress. Which is in underscore progress. We also have blocked. There's some tickets which get blocked due to dependency on something else. Okay, so for example, I'm depending on another ticket, so that is blocked. Okay, and the final one is closed. It is basically when the ticket is closed. Will it reject it? No, you cannot reject a ticket. You can either close it, or if you're waiting for somebody, you can block. You can never reject a ticket. Okay, you can close it. If you're not okay with the customer demand, you can close it by saying that I'm not happy. But you cannot directly reject it, as you can do with a bunch of other things. Okay, as users can be rejected, but tickets have to be closed. Okay, so you come here and you do const ticket status, and I got that from constants, and all I need to do is come here and write ticket status dot open. This is the default value. This is the status. Other than status, what else do we need in the ticket model? We need the reporter, who reported it, who is the assignee. We need all these information. I mean, typically those are not required, but it's a good idea to have a location for who has reported. It's the reporter of the ticket. You can write the name of the string. You can write the user ID of the user. There is also an assignee. It is also an optional parameter. Typically, every ticket you would want a assignee, or you would want to assign it to one of the engineers. We'll have created at. Now this is similar to the user data. Okay, user model also had created at, which is of type date. Who is the person who has created the ticket? That is called as reporter. Think of reporter as the creator. Okay, so then you'll not get confused. Reporter is the creator of the ticket. Type is date. Immutable. This is, don't change the starting date. It will remain the same. And default value is a function which returns date dot now. I have to see if I have imported date. I have not imported. I think it is there in the schema, so I'll not do anything about it. And then the final thing that we have is updated at, which is the last field in this. Updated at. This updated at. Why is the schema coming up? Sorry. Updated at. Engineer assignee is an engineer assigned. Yeah, it is the engineer who is assigned this ticket. Okay. So suppose I say that Suraj is going to resolve this ticket, so I assign this ticket to Suraj. That is called as assignee. Updated date is also of type date. It is mutable. It's okay if you don't provide it, it's not mandatory. And the default value of this is also date.now. That's how you can create a I don't need anything else, so I'll just create the schema like this only. There's also some option like you can do a version key false or something if you want to remove. You can set some options in the schema like how do you want to keep the version key or not, or all those options. I'll keep them intact. I don't mind a version key we change. By default, why write in function? We cannot write it directly because I think direct will not work. Function will call this. I think function will call this function. So therefore, it is a default value. I'm not sure. Anyways, we come here. Once we have the schema, all we need to do is we need to export this schema. So I'll just do module dot exports equal to mongoose dot model. Create a ticket model. Call this model as ticket, and I send the ticket as schema. That's how I can create the model. And are you able to follow this schema validation part? Is there anyone who is not following the schema validation part? Got it. Okay. We're just creating a schema and creating a model from it. Now the next step would be to create the controllers for it. We will have 4 functions that we need to write in the schema. Okay, let me give you the overview of what I'm going to create in the model, in the control. Let me just give me 1 second. Let me think what really I want to communicate. Okay, I'll start functionality we need from the ticket. Okay, from the ticket part of these things. And for that, if you give me 1 minute, I'll open up my PDF notes. I'll open up my PDF notes. And this is the PDF notes. Ticket manipulation and admin capabilities. And design of files.
कौन कौन बता जल की हाँ और मम्मी का नंबर नहीं था
So here are all the things that we need. There are two people who can communicate with the tickets. Okay. Right now we are building it for only two people. But there can be a customer element. I'm not discussing that right now. That's not the part of today's session. But you can extend it to customers. Right now we are just looking at admin and engineer. Okay. And what are the capabilities that admin and engineers have? First, in admin should see all ticket. He should be able to see all ticket. Able to see all ticket details. Second, he should be able to see all active tickets. And he should be able to see which ticket is from which engineer. So able to see customers and engineers. You should be able to see which customer has raised which ticket and which engineer is assigned to which ticket. Those are the things that admin needs. Engineer can update an issue. He can search for an issue. He can basically search for an issue. Typically, he can search for an old issue. This is something you might not have thought about, but sometimes a similar issue comes again and again. So engineer should have ability to search through the database for similar issues. Okay. And it can accept an issue, which is basically to accept an issue, which is basically to convert open ticket into is pending ticket or assigned ticket. Okay. That is access an issue. See the complete list of that is update. Close is update only. Okay. This is accept, ACCEPT. And see all the issues assigned to him. Whatever is assigned to me, I should be able to see all that issues. Issue means tickets. Yes, issue means ticket. Issue means ticket. Okay. So those are all the capabilities that we are supposed to build on our app. Any questions about this?
No, sir. सबको हिरवाया है तो मारेंगे ना, तो रखे हैं, फेंकता है कहाँ पता नहीं चलता है। जल्दी होमवर्क करो।
कहाँ रख देते हैं तो कैसे पता?
Just give me 1 second. Let me see what else is there next class. Education.
छोटा में अभी है स्कूल है।
हाँ
मम्मी
अभी नहीं है, जल्दी होमवर्क पूरा करो।
4, 6, 7. Just give me 1 second. Let me check in the. Let me see if I'm covering the right things. 3, 4. Yeah, so this is correct. Can an engineer view tickets resolved by other? No, that is not. He should be able to search for the issue, so he should be able to see. Yeah, he should be able to see. Yeah, that is for another class, Gauri. We are going to create a notification service on top of the rest of the things that we are discussing, and that notification service is going to send notification whenever. That will be a different service that we'll use apart from our CRM app, and that service is going to send a notification whenever there is something interesting happening on the app. Okay. Can engineer update on an issue assigned to him or her? Yes, he can update. That is what it is. No, he cannot update an issue. He can update an issue which is not assigned to him. That is okay. Okay. I'm not sure how it is implemented, but ideally he should be allowed to update. That kind of capability you typically provide to your engineers. You trust them with the tickets. So um, let me see. Ah,
3030 कितना होता है 3030 3030 पता है
yes, that is possible. That should be possible. He should be able to sort it based on active use engineer ID or user ID. That is correct. I like that idea. Um, okay. Just give me a few minutes. Let me see what is there in session 4. Ticket routes, user routes.
THIR
I don't see a change from session 3 to session 4. Okay. Anyways, yeah, that is okay, Likita. I like your idea. I think there's no difference between session 3 and session 4. So yeah, so that's the ticket model. And right now I'll take a break for 18 minutes. I'll come back at 9:36, and then maybe 9:37 to be precise. And then what we are going to do is after you come back, I'll define the controllers. Okay, and I'll try to define one middleware also. So break till I'll push the changes. Break till 9:36. I'll call it 9:37. I don't mind 1 minute. 37 p.m. Okay. That is there. Now I'll just push the changes. Just give me 1 minute. Just come here and go to CRM app. Edit. I have pushed the changes of the ticket model. You can fetch it from the library. And I'm going to mute myself.
HTWENY 30 WENTY